everyone. Before we get started with the committee tonight, we have one public speaker tonight. Pasolette, if you want to come on up and introduce yourself. Don't forget you have 3 minutes, and I need your address.
Oh, it's on my phone.
I know. I just.
Oh, you mean to say it? I'm in Save at Home, Ohio, the protection program with the state. So my address is confidential. Okay. Due to some violences of people who don't like what I do. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to reiterate and reemphasize, because on last week you introduced some of your legislation, and I wanted to come back, since you're going to be in committee, to express and reiterate once again my concerns from last week. And for the item for 2025-05, as you know, I am following up with the abolition of slavery, so I would like to know what initiatives for 2025-05 that you have with this agreement to stop the recidivism, and what agencies and what organizations do you have so that we don't keep a revolving door with people being incarcerated, whether it be for misdemeanors or felonies. I am in support of 2025-09, and as I stated last week, I would like the language to be inclusive of Black, brown, and multiracial Americans. I am once again in opposition to any type of funding agreements between this council and the Cleveland Clinic Foundation until they do right by people of color, and especially women and children who are victims of violence. I do support Summa Foundation, Hospital Foundation, being in a funding agreement with you. I am in support of that. And they are doing a lot of very wonderful things in the community. I am in opposition to 2025-12 for any funding agreements, any type of agreements with Job and Family Services, Children's Services, or anything under their umbrella until they do right by women and children, and especially we women of color and our children. And Mr. Potter has my concerns that you all can speak with him in reference to. I am in support of your amended item 2025-13 for the Marathon Charitable Corporation funding, grant funding. And I am in support of the Akron Summit County Public Library funding agreement that you are working on. And if you need to reach me, you can contact me at 330-428-9191. I pray that your legislation will be effective in curtailing violence and also pursuing the abolition of slavery so women and children have a voice and have a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Pasolette. Next, I'd like to invite the Board of Elections employees, Lance Reed and Pete Ziegler, up to address council.
Good evening. Thank you for having us back. Lance Reed.
Pete Ziegler.
And then with us, we also have Andrew Shehorn. He is our newest member of the IT supervisory staff. Andrew was formerly our assistant director. And then Kevin Moreland.
Pleasure to meet you all this evening.
He's the other counterpart to Andrew for the IT supervisory staff. So we wanted to have the IT staff with us here this evening. Now, I will put one caveat on Mr. Shehorn. He's been in the role for a month, but he was not with us for the election in November. He and his wife celebrated the birth of their first child, so he was out on paternity leave. So he wasn't with us for the election, but wanted to have him here this evening. So if you don't mind, we'll kind of run through a small number of facts here, just kind of surrounding election night itself. So rough estimation for us would have been that the first poll sticks were returned to the BOE around 8:15 p.m. So that would be vehicles or PEOs that were working the polls in the city of Akron, Akron assigned precincts. Those vehicles deliver their sticks back to us at the Board of Elections directly in a bipartisan fashion. Some of the outlying communities, we have centralized pickup locations. So the first sticks would have gotten it back to us right around 8:15 p.m. Now, first poll results should have been available right around 8:45. That would have given us the first vehicle coming back around 8:15. We have to pull the blue bags, the red bags into the building. We have to remove the memory sticks from the blue bags, kind of go through a check-in process. So the first poll results should have been uploaded around 8:45. Looking back at our reports from election night, looks like the first poll sticks were uploaded to the tabulation system around 10:15. And then the first report became available to the public around 10:45 p.m. that evening. And final report was available to the public around 2:20 a.m. So it was about a 4-hour process from the time the first stick was introduced into the tabulation system by the time we had the last of our results. Now, looking back at some of our numbers from that evening, between 7:40 or so, when we had uploaded our first election night reporting and first results would have been available to the public, we had about 10,000 absentee ballots that we ended up processing from the time that 7:40 time hit for our first upload at 8 p.m. until about 10:45 p.m. So somewhere in that 3-hour window, we had about 10,000 absentees that we uploaded. Now, within that time period, 10,000 absentees is a lot of paper by itself, and that's why I wanted to have Kevin here, because he's the one who's very familiar with that entire process. But as a part of that process, we also have ballots from absentee by mail ballots that as they're getting uploaded, they also need to be reviewed to make sure that if the system's reading it as a blank ballot, that we're getting a chance to review that to make sure that it's truly blank. If there's overvotes, that we're looking at that. And then for an election like this, where you have a write-in for president and you also have a write-in for Senate, sometimes you run across what's known as a double bubble. So, for instance, the Senate race, somebody may have filled in the bubble for Sherrod Brown, and then also filled in the bubble and written in the name for Sherrod Brown. So during that adjudication process, the system initially reads that as an overvote, because it's seeing 2 bubbles filled in. But the way our directive reads is you would take the write-in vote away, because the write-in was for the same candidate that was filled in. So we want to be as accurate as we possibly can on election night. So those types of ballots do need to be reviewed, which is a part of during that process. Now, one thing Kevin has kind of informed us about is back at the March primary election, the IT department was able to successfully upload all of the absentees before we got to the poll ballots without any kind of delay like we saw in November. And then Kevin also let us know that right now, because of the way the system was set up for November, the IT department could only scan into one active database at a time, since the tabulation system is all networked together, and he'd be able to provide a little bit more information on that if there's any questions. And then we do notice that the uploads take longer than our previous election equipment, just because of the way they're encrypted nowadays. Kevin, what would you say like an old PCMCIA card maybe took to scan in?
Hey, everybody. So under our older tabulation system, we had PCMCIA cards, which were cards that did not have encryption on them. The newer system, I would say that system took maybe 3 to 5 seconds to upload. However, now we have what I would call a modern tabulation system. So your trade-off is speed versus cybersecurity, which is encryption on the USBs, which means that once the USB is inserted into our equipment, it has to be decrypted and then copied over to our server to give the election results and then safely ejected. So there's like a 5-minute difference or so between the older system and the newer system. So elections will no longer be a quick, maybe by 10 process. It'll be a longer process. But the trade-off is you get accuracy, transparency, and basically a more secure election and system.
So there is a difference there between our old system and our new system, just with the amount of time it takes. So kind of going back and looking at, what happened that night. So obviously it was not the intention of any of us, all of us, the board itself, because we do, take this as a group effort. It was not any of our intention to delay the polls until absentee was completed. Part of it looks like, was kind of a communication issue. So we had, our absentee ballots still being opened in our boardroom, and I think there was a little bit of maybe a disconnect on how many were still outstanding, so that, to start moving on to the polls. We also then, like I say, had the board members doing some of the adjudication up in the boardroom to clear up any of these double bubbles, overvotes, and to make sure everything was approved by them as the directive requires. So, I think there was a little bit of a lack of communication, or maybe some miscommunication. Kevin's former counterpart, who's no longer employed at the board, I know he and I had a conversation shortly after the election, and he had mentioned to me, which didn't quite make sense, that he had made a comment to me that, during the ENR process, election night reporting, we have some mock elections that we go
Lance,
through.
could you acronym?
Yes,
ENR.
ENR,
Say
election night reporting. Sure. So there's mock elections that we go through to make sure that the information that we're uploading from our tabulation system to the state is all read properly. And he had made a comment, and maybe there was a misunderstanding even in my question to him or the way he answered, but he had made a comment that in his mind, the absentees were going to be uploaded before the polls, because that was what one of the ENR mocks had called for. And I had spoken to our staff this morning that did the mock elections, and he said no. He said, and Kevin can kind of back this up, is there was a first stick, which was absentees only, so kind of like our first 8 o'clock report. Then there's an intermediate report, which has absentees and polls together, and then a final report. So like I say, there may have been just some misunderstanding there, but that was the comment that was made to me. So I think there was just a little bit of a communication barrier that occurred on election night that kind of led to some of this breakdown for that 2-hour gap. Let's see. Now, Pete, myself, and I know the board members, like I say, did ask some questions about uploading, about why we weren't uploading the polls. And Pete had mentioned, he was kind of, I don't know, resisted in jumping into the polls. Now, I asked Kevin over the last couple of days, just kind of, could we have pivoted on election night? We were seeing that the absentees were maybe taking longer. Could we have gone ahead and jumped into the polls? Kevin did say, yes, we could have. My only concern with that would have been, had we made a pivot on election night, would that have caused any errors or anything? Would there have maybe led to an oversight somewhere else that we thought we were done it with the database and maybe we weren't because we had stopped midstream? So I think it's easier to look back a couple months later and saying, yeah, we could have easily done that. I don't know what would have actually happened in the moment, and that obviously could have led to a worst case scenario of maybe results being inaccurate on election night. So that certainly would have been a concern of mine had we made the switch midstream. Now, Kevin and Andrew have talked about the change in roles that they're going to kind of implement for future elections, and how they process the election, especially with election night, the tabulation results. And Kevin can provide a little bit more background on that, and also just how we're going to process uploading polls and absentees in the future, because we use a 2-server system. Kevin, maybe that's a good spot for you to jump in, is how we use the 2 servers so far, and maybe what we're going to be switching to here in the future.
Sure. So there are going to be a number of changes, and just want to make it perfectly clear, after every election, we have a meeting to see where we could have done better, what went right. So just want to let you all know that is always something that we do. We take this very seriously. One thing for sure that we're going to do is, I've had the greatest opportunity to upload election results for this county since 2015. I am going to definitely step back. I'm going to be more of a helicopter, looking at several processes. I'm going to be looking at the absentees that are currently being processed. Those are called our last call absentee. I'm going to be looking at when the polling location USBs come in to the board, making sure that once we get them in, we get them uploaded. And I'm going to take a timestamp. I'm going to basically journalize and study how we're able to do this better election after election. One of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to provide a newer website, a website that will show the results at the machine level rather than the precinct level. What this does for us is it allows us to not necessarily stop from a polling location perspective. What that means is, at the polls right now, every machine has the ability to take other precincts. So we like to get a full precinct uploaded, and then sometimes, because it takes so long to upload, we have to wait. So in order to prevent that, we're going to go to a machine-based reporting. So you'll see maybe Old Portage Masonic, which has 4 precincts in it. You're going to see 4 machines reporting rather than 3 of the 4 precincts reporting, basically. We won't be able to stop. We'll be keeping going. We'll get the results up there as quickly as we can. But for sure, Election Day will no longer be a quicker upload process like we've had in the past. Again, this is more of a cyber-securitized, transparent, and better process for you all. Number of other things too, but yeah.
So we just kind of wanted to provide some of those facts before we went into questions, if you didn't mind.
Oh, go on.
Kevin, thank you for that update. We really appreciate it. I think really my questions are for Lance and Pete, which is, I know as we discussed last time, one of the real questions that emerged from that is what are your plans to document procedure and then communicate outwardly in a more efficient way moving forward? I think hearing from Kevin that this is about security, I think no one on this dais would take objection to that, right?
Yeah.
We're all very aware of the world we live in and the need to have those measures. Obviously, one of the biggest, I think, failings here was a failure to communicate that change in advance. And so really hearing from you two, like, what are the plans moving forward on how you both plan to put these procedures in place internally and then hold folks accountable, but then communicate outwardly to all your stakeholders, whether that is people on the ballot, voters themselves, about what they can expect from your organization moving forward?
Okay. In terms of comprehensive communications, we'll certainly be reaching out to stakeholders, particularly our elected officials, letting them understand that there are new expectations in terms of timelines on this. There's just no way we can get results as fast as we could under the old systems. And we will use our communications and networks, social media, even traditional media, and just let folks understand that the timing is going to be different moving forward. And in terms of our internal processes, we've already been working on documenting and setting in stone our processes. And I feel that by the time that this May election is coming up, our processes are going to be pretty solid, and I'm very confident that we will have results as quickly as we can.
Great. What's your deadline for yourselves internally to document all these procedures and changes and train the staff?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I don't necessarily have a deadline in mind at the moment yet. Probably sometime, ideally before we have our early voting starting in April. So, I mean, if we can get into the March timeframe, that would be perfect. But ideally before we have early voting in April, so that way it still gives us, in essence, a full month to work through any processes that maybe need input from the department so that we can make changes along the way to be as prepared as possible for May.
That'd be great. I think we'd all love to know when you reach a decision on what that deadline would be.
Sure,
and to
absolutely.
hear again before we get into the next round of voting.
Yeah.
And I think the other question I have for you guys, and I know maybe some of this got teased out a little bit when we went on the Hard Hat Tour last week. We do seem to be a county that is moving farther ahead than our compatriots around the state with both the technology, machinery, and security. But I'm curious how and if other counties are adopting these same security measures and how they're able to produce, or if they're able to produce outcomes faster or reports faster, or if we can expect to start seeing other counties in a similar space like us of this slowing down of results and the visibility of those numbers
Sure.
on Election Day.
Kev, do you want to kind of handle it from a cybersecurity, since basically everybody has the same kind of metrics to follow?
Yeah, so we can't really speak to how the other BOEs, Board of Elections, do it. However, let me just kind of paint the picture of what we went through and how we'll kind of do it a little bit better. So between 7:40, 10:45, we had roughly 10,000 ballots to look through. That's a lot of ballots. This was probably the second largest election since the 2008 election, where there was no encryption, right? So what that means is we have to get the ballots in, whether it be from the drop box, whether it be from the mail, then we have to get it through our sorter system, then we have to process it through our VR system, then finally it gets to a set of teams that are opening these ballots. The most important thing is we have an audit that we have to adhere to after every election. So the audit is always lingering, right? So what that means is, once we get these ballots, we then put them into an order as best we can that is number-based, so that when we have to go pick for the audit, we know where we need to get to for a big election. So once the ballots are photorized for us, they come into our computer room, we scan them. We then have to look for overvotes and blank ballots. We have to also assign ballots that were not read by the system to be in the correct precinct style so that we know where the votes should look for on the screen. And then from there, we have Pete and Lance. They take a look at the double bubbles, the write-in choices for the same name as the candidate choice, which normally would be a no vote, which we cannot have a no vote if someone votes for Trump and then writes his name in. That's actually a vote for him. So all those ballots have to be analyzed, scrutinized. Then our board, they go through any voter intent and they do the final checkoff. So for 10,000 ballots within a 3-hour time frame with that particular process, it's a lot. Which, like you said, to use the reference from Cool Hand Luke, there was a failure to communicate, right? So by me, Andrew, kind of stepping away to be able to see things where they need to be, we'll be able to communicate to the board. We'll be able to communicate to Pete and Lance and be like, hey, let's get those polls going. Or they can come and tell us. Now, we did have a little bit of a handicap, which we didn't really talk about. Lance's wife was on the ballot, so he really wasn't able to communicate as we normally would be able to. We were doing a lot of different things. Pete was probably looking at the polls coming in and the process getting to our Elevate sorter, into our VR system, into the ballot openers, back down to the computer room for tabulation. So with that being said, we know exactly where we went wrong, and we can fix it.
And I will say, even speaking of the speed, because, as Kevin referenced, every election so far with Clear Ballot has been a little bit of a learning experience for us. And so, I don't remember if it was maybe the first or second election when we had a larger turnout and we were still uploading images. And we saw with uploading of images from the sticks how much that slowed us down. So then that we made a pivot then to say, okay, each machine has 2 sticks and they duplicate to each other. So we made the decision to upload numbers only to begin with, so that way we could get those results up more quickly, even though it's still slow with how long it takes for the USB. And then after all those results are in, we actually come back with a second stick to upload the images, so that way we can look at those for any write-in reports that we need to do. So that was one thing we learned early on. And then the other thing we learned early on was we didn't have enough upload stations. So we actually purchased additional upload stations. Was that in 23 or early 24?
Our first election was the primary.
So
last year.
primary 24. So
December 23.
we purchased extra upload stations so that we could have additional staff uploading more sticks at the same time, so we could try getting through those. So, kind of like Kevin mentioned, each board's a little bit different. So I think we just need to find our sweet spot and kind of where we're at to get those results up as quickly as possible, but making sure we're able to be as accurate as possible too.
Just a couple of quick questions, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but as you talked about this verification process, the way that you're looking to set this up going forward, you could be doing that verification while you're still uploading machines, correct, as opposed to waiting for that to be
Right.
completed?
So one of the other pieces that we're going to change, if I haven't already said it, was we were working out of one active database. What that means is that is the only database at that moment in time with which you can merge sticks from the polls and that you can scan absentees into. So the board has purchased an additional server. That server was currently a write-in adjudication server, and it served a backup purpose. Now we're going to use that as an additional simultaneous active scanning database. So for instance, our Monday board meeting for adjudication, not to get everybody in our business, but that'll most likely be our by 8 o'clock upload. That's already ready to go and buttoned up. At that moment in time, after that meeting, we have another server, like I said, we'll have active, and that's where we'll be putting in our last call absentees. So essentially, we'll be able to scan those in. The board can do their adjudication. Pete and Lance can do their adjudication. I can do whatever I need to do to get the ballots into the right suit, so to speak. And at the same time, the other server will be where the polling location sticks get uploaded to. And then right at the very end, we have the ability to merge from the other server's active database into the final tally. So.
And so with the, when you talked about reporting by machine versus by precinct, so
Yes.
will that make the results look a little bit different within by location and then have machines within location? Or will the final report have it by precinct, or how will that work?
So, as long as I've been doing this, it's always been a number of precincts reporting. That worked very well in our ES&S tabulation software. However, this one, with there being so many pieces to the pie and such a long time to get that data uploaded, we're going to go with a machine-based. That way, we won't be, so for instance, right now, if I have a 4-precinct location, and I know this is a big election, and it's going to take more than perhaps 2 minutes to get the data from those 4 precincts uploaded, I have to be picky about how I divvy out those sticks, which takes time. If we go to a scenario where we're reporting by USB stick, I can tell you and cut off and say, all right, I have 3 of 4 sticks uploaded, or 3 or 4 machines uploaded. And because with it being any line, any time at the polls, all those machines have the mixture of the precincts in them, which is critical to, making sure you have the time correctly and not the time correctly, but the USBs divvied out correctly so that when the cutoff occurs, because see, and I have some reports up here, but we're always on a 20-minute timer. We're uploading all the time, right? So once you get to that timer so that you don't miss your deadline, you have to make sure you get all of the precincts reporting. And so you spread out and you wait and you say, all right, we're going to cut that off right there. Now we're going to say, you have a stick, upload it. When's the cutoff? All right, that's the cutoff. Basically, we're going to simplify it and make it a little bit more accurate not accurate, but we're going to simplify it and make life easier for us.
And so that will also help when you have those machines that aren't able to scan for some reason that have to be scanned
That is a very good
manually by
point.
you as
So,
well. Okay.
we discovered also, we have to do a little bit more due diligence during the day. So we have what I call a triage call center. Calls are coming in like, you know what. And sometimes you may have a printer issue. Well, we had an issue in the primary where one of our printers the paper wasn't spooled correctly, and it was throwing these errors onto the USB. It bloated the USB file, put characters that the system could not recognize, and it completely halted the system. So that took about, I would say, 30 or 40 minutes of us to pivot, figure out what happened. So in order to prevent something like that, yes, this stick by stick instead of precinct by precinct upload, it can help that.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Gentlemen, when you were here before, you mentioned that on election night, there was an IT person that made a random decision on their own to change something in the process. Has that been addressed to prevent that from happening again? And I guess for clarification on my part, are they authorized to do that?
Yeah, so, and that's where I think we have a little bit of the miscommunication, which is where I was referencing the ENR, that Kevin's previous counterpart had told me a few days after the election that, no, we were going to kind of follow what the ENR process was, which was to finish the absentees before we got into the polls. And that's where, talking to Kevin and then talking to our one of our ENR staff today, he said, no, that was not the case with the ENR mock election. So that's where I was going off of what he had told me a couple days after the election of, he had kind of made a decision to go this path. And that's why I was asking Kevin to see, had we known or thought more about it in the minute, could we have made that pivot? And Kevin said, thinking about it now, going backwards, yes, we could have made the pivot. So like I say, I think, again, this is where it comes down to the communication thing. I was told one thing by one of the IT supervisors a few days after the election when asking questions, and Kevin kind of provided some different input over the last week or so while we've been having these conversations. So again, just another one of those communication things, honestly.
John?
Thank you. So, Kevin, you mentioned that you, in the future, would help kind of oversee and make sure that there weren't any gaps in communication or any gaps in timing, and fulfill that role that in the past, there really wasn't a person that was kind of troubleshooting in that manner. Is that correct?
Are you talking about election day, looking for?
Yeah, on election day.
Well, yes, in the past, we never had to look for hardware corrupting electronic data. So yes, that is something new to the
So it's a
pod.
new system, and it may require another,
Yes.
a role that
Right.
it wasn't
And-
required in the
Well,
past to kind of
And it
help
was
things
also something
work
that
more
had never
smoothly.
been seen by the vendor, too.
Oh, okay.
And even thinking about the old system, and having Kevin here can walk you through it even more, but under the old system, when our PCMCIA cards would come in, they would work their way kind of through a process to get to the tabulation room. Kevin, at that point, along with his counterpart, were the ones who actually uploaded those cards into the tabulation system. And so that's the system that they've been continuing to follow, and that's where Kevin's now, I think, more realizing that he shouldn't be that person actually doing the upload. He needs to be the one kind of taking that step back, going to the higher level, and making sure the process kind of over the whole field is being handled, rather than him being the one to actually execute it.
At the same time, if any one of us has someone of a significant other relationship on the ballot, and we, for obvious reasons, cannot be near the ballot or near the tabulation system, I can, or my counterpart can serve as an additional supervisor, so to speak, to be able to see all the things that are going on, to recognize it. We're more like worker bees, I would say, putting those uploads, the data in.
Well, that sounds wise, and so that role would be kind of, since we have a new system and we have to implement a little bit more oversight, would be kind of a formalized role in the future?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it was also never the intention to just hold on to the absentees. Again, I stressed the importance of knowing that we had 10,000 ballots between a 3-hour time frame, which is unprecedented. And to use another phrase, a New York minute, those minutes go very fast, especially if you're at the helm doing all that work.
Well, I think we all appreciate the need for accuracy and security and the things that, we value in an election. And if I were to choose one, I probably would choose accuracy over getting it done really quickly. But if all these things, these changes are in place and an election were to go smoothly in the future, what kind of timing could you guess that we might be looking at in a large turnout election, in the future? Like in the evening, what time would we maybe see the results and final results coming in?
Me personally, having 2 young kids, election week, I would say, is very tough, right? I'm not trying to be too long-winded here, but when you get to election night, you've probably gotten maybe 6 to 8 hours of sleep within a 3-day span, no lie. So I would love to get out by midnight. That would be great. That would be my target. Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Schmidt?
I can find nothing. I want to thank you for coming down here and explaining this. It's been very valuable. I can find nothing in the charter or the codified ordinances that says that we have any authority over you folks at all. We have, of course, we control your budget, but that can be mandated by going through the court. So, I mean, it would be ridiculous to think that we could somehow hold up your budget and stop the Board of Elections from doing what they do. you would go to court and the courts would force us to provide you with the budget that you need. I want to commend and thank you and thank the full-time employees, and please take that back, that this was not an inquisition or an investigation. I want to thank you, and I want to thank the people at the Board of Elections for what they do. 371 precincts in Summit County, 4 booth workers per precinct, plus what, a couple of extra for the presidential? So about, you're looking at over 2,000 booth workers, part-time booth workers on Election Day. And what would you say the average age of these folks is?
You can give a better assessment on that.
I'm going to say it's I'm going to,
They ranged from 17 to well over 17.
so, I mean, it is, and I can speak from experience, as most people know, I was Deputy Director of the Summit County Board of Elections, proudest accomplishment of my entire life for approximately 3 years. And we did punch cards back then, and with the hanging chads and all that other stuff. But I want to commend all of you. It's nothing short of miraculous that it comes off the way it does. I've described it as organized chaos.
Yes.
And I suggest to anyone, none of us are on the ballot, to my knowledge, in 2025. We could all serve as booth workers, could we not?
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah. What, you've done it? Have you done it before?
I don't think I can, is what I'm saying.
I don't know that you couldn't, if you're, as long as you're not on the ballot. And what's it pay now? 120 bucks a day or something?
What is it? No, they raised it a little bit, so what is it, if you're a
think-
manager, it's around 180 or so, 180 to 200.
Yeah.
So it's moved up a little bit.
Right.
Well, 180 bucks, and then you get, what, 20 bucks for going to the booth worker training?
Yep, mm-hmm.
So
$30 for training.
$200.
Yeah.
And at one time, there was such a shortage of booth workers that county employees were allowed to take the day off and
And I think we
become-
still have that, actually. We still do.
Yes, we still encourage that.
And do you get a good response from that? I would hope.
Yeah, I think so.
All the
Yeah.
county employees in the audience this evening, we all should do our civic duty, but if you want to learn what really goes on, go be a booth worker. It's an absolutely amazing process, and that it all comes off the way it does is nothing short of miraculous. And to the booth workers and to the full-time employees at the Board of Elections. And it's not just, you go to the Board of Elections and you file your campaign finance reports, and people are sitting behind a computer and they're doing this. The reason it's called the unofficial on election night is because there are votes that come in after Election Day. There's overseas, there's military, there's absentees that are postmarked on Election Day, and those are all thrown into the mix. And when you talk about adjudication of the ballots, the board is actually in session on Election Day. And they're sitting upstairs in the boardroom, and you guys go through it first, and there's a pile there, and you vote on whether we're going to accept these or not, and throw those into the count. So, they've got a job to do too, and there's a process that takes place. So please relay to the staff at the Board of Elections, and I think I speak for most of the people here, our appreciation, and I commend you and thank you for what you do. It's
Thank you.
it's an amazing thing to watch democracy in action. I mean, on the ground. It's absolutely incredible, and it makes you proud to be an American.
Yes, it does.
So, thanks for coming down here. You didn't have to.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Lance, I have a question.
Yes.
So my question, listening to you guys talk today, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but you were talking about going forward, you guys are going to see about a website, on the website, about the precinct total. So like that total tally, that's the tally that would go on the door normally after each precinct closes, when the polls close and those machines are added up. There's a total ticket that goes on the door.
Correct.
Are you talking about that number
No.
being uploaded?
We're
on the
talking about
website?
the total, so we're 371 precincts in Summit. So
Right.
we're talking about, at the end of the day, saying 371 precincts have been reported and finished. And in other words, we're trying to say we have 371 machines finished.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little different.
Right, because like.
But I know we'd had that conversation, and
Right.
even last time, I remember former Councilwoman Rogers had mentioned the same thing, where she had couldn't remember if it was her who went to a couple of the polling locations or somebody else she knew, and how some of those poll tapes were not taped to the door as they're supposed to be.
The reason why I
And
know
so,
that is because I did work the polling for many years while my children were babies, by the way. I worked in the one in Macedonia at the Masonic at the time, when my children were little, but I do know that we put those totals on the door.
yep,
And so the night of this election, there was a lot of those totals that were not on the
Missing.
door. And I thought that it was very important that when you do the training, that they know that that has to go up on the door, those tallies. But I was just wondering if somehow, like, those poll workers at the end of the night, they know those totals. How somebody can communicate to you guys that what those numbers are, so that there is a end game, and we don't have to wait till 2 in the morning because of conflicts and communication problems. That's just my opinion. Mr. Wilhite?
One last question. We had a chance to see the work being done over at Talmadge Avenue.
Yes.
And it's really, really impressive. Are you guys planning any kind of a public open house? Is that even allowed? To just to let the folks know that, hey, this new system's in place, here's the new space, get them an opportunity to see, to John's term, democracy in action. Because
Yeah.
it was very, very impressive what we saw in the walkthrough.
and you're referring to the new building? Yeah, we haven't talked about that. We've been working with the land bank on, obviously, the first hard hat tour we just did this past week. And hopefully a second one here, maybe in April or, May, and then a ribbon cutting at that point. So I think, there's certainly an opportunity to work with the land bank to see, can we fit something like that in the schedule, depending on what the construction team would say about having the public go through the building. But I think that's certainly a possibility, because, especially, all of the areas right now where we have equipment that is behind locked secure doors with the bipartisan locks and everything, those could still stay locked, or we would have staff there to be able to show it to the voters. So it's something we could certainly look at, talk to the land bank about.
What did the board members do on election night? Where do they go? They're there somewhere?
So, yeah, they are there. So the last, not more than a year, the last couple years, the Secretary of State has required the board to be in session at the opening of the polls on election morning. So they've come in for election morning at 6:30 a.m. to open the polls, and they have the ability to do adjudication there. At that particular point in time, they will traditionally go into recess at that point and then come back closer to when the polls close. So usually somewhere in the 7 to 7:30 range, somewhere in that time frame. They will come back, and then that's where, as Kevin was mentioning, kind of like the last call round of absentees. That's where they'll go through their adjudication process. And I think, Kev, would you say the last of the last call they were doing adjudication was at like 10:40? So somewhere between about 7:30 until, for this election, 10:40, they were in and out of the boardroom actually doing adjudication on those absentee ballots.
So all board members are present? at all?
Correct. Yes.
And, Mr. Schmidt, you have?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Let's go.
I was just wondering. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, you're welcome. Thanks for having us. Let us know if you want us back.
Great.
You're on.
Okay, it is 5:13, and the Public Works Committee will come to order. We have one resolution to consider this evening, 2025-004, a resolution authorizing the executive to advertise for bids and to enter into a cooperative agreement with Northfield Center Township concerning the Bayberry Drive Drainage and Roadway Improvements Project at an estimated cost not to exceed $1,060,900 with no county funds involved, located in Northfield Center Township and Council District 1 for the executive and engineer, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Good evening. Aquila Hollinger with the Summit County Engineer's Office. Heidi previously mentioned, I believe it was in December, that you would be seeing more of this type of legislation due to the engineers doing more construction administration and going out looking for bids on behalf of townships. These are township roads and projects, but with Summit County engineering staff having more expertise. We will be administrating this on behalf of the townships. For this particular project, the project will install storm sewers, catch basins, and manholes, as well as restoring the pavement along Bayberry Drive. As mentioned, there are no county funds involved, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from members of the committee? Members of council? The public? Mr. Donofrio moved on 2025-004. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the Public Works Committee? Then we're adjourned.
Planning and Economic Development will open at 5:15. Our first piece tonight is 2025-006, a resolution authorizing the executive to execute a grant agreement with the Greater Akron Chamber Foundation to provide a local funding match to the State of Ohio's Innovation Hubs Program grant for the Greater Akron Polymer Innovation Hub project for a 3-year term from June 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, in an amount not to exceed $250,000 per year for a total amount not to exceed $750,000 for the executive and declaring an emergency. Mr. Millard, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all today. I'm Steve Millard with the Greater Akron Chamber. I think before the meeting you were provided some information from Mr. Nelson about the Innovation Hub and Tech Hub projects that we've got going on. Some of you may be familiar with the work, but about 4 or 5 years ago, but 2021, we created this polymer industry cluster as sort of an outcome of the Elevate Greater Akron work that was done, where we really talked about placing a bet on our economic future by investing in some of our legacy industries where we have great density and opportunity. And the polymer industry, plastics, rubber, chemicals, was a place that we thought showed great promise. So we began that work, began to connect companies, and we've brought a large coalition of companies together, and private sector, public sector organizations. From the very beginning, the County of Summit has been a key partner in this effort, along with the City of Akron, Team NEO, the University of Akron, the Greater Akron Chamber, and it really helped us to shape and drive this work. A few months ago, in the middle of the summer, we were awarded a very large federal grant for our Sustainable Polymer Tech Hub for this region. So we were designated by the US EDA as the country's Sustainable Polymer Tech Hub. And that has allowed us access to resources, financial support, but also connections to many others across the country in terms of driving this sort of economic rebirth for the country in terms of industrial strategy. In addition to that, about in 2023, in the governor's budget, we lobbied for Innovation Hub money. And this was money, we looked at Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, and the fact they were getting big investments in technology hubs, and asked for some of that for our community as well, and for places like Dayton and places like Toledo. And so we were successful in getting the budget line and put into the budget, and then subsequently competed for a $30 million grant, again, to advance and drive the polymer industry work that we want to do. There'll be several components of that you saw in the materials that we received. Part of that was having to raise about $10.5 million of local match. And so we went out to companies in the region, organizations, nonprofit organizations, as well as the county, the city, and others to ask for your support so that we can basically match your money 3-to-1 with the state dollars to drive opportunity and jobs for the region. So we come seeking your support for that match. We are suggesting $250,000 a year for the next 3 years to get to that $750,000 support level. And we are hopeful that you'll be supportive of that so that we can continue to drive this opportunity for the polymer industry in the region.
Thank you. Any of my colleagues have questions? Mr. Wilhite?
Mr. Millard, what is the timeline for the big grant that came this summer in terms of deploying that? It's an amazing opportunity for the community at large. What kind of a time frame are we looking at?
So the federal grant is over 4 years of activity, and so that federal grant, a lot of those dollars, I've sort of made sure people know we don't have $100 million sitting in the closet at the chamber. Basically, a lot of those dollars are going to specific projects to create technologies for the region. And so we'll deploy that over the next 4 years. We're really in the first quarter of activity. Although we got that grant from the federal government in the July timeframe, we didn't get it under contract until just before the holiday. It took a long time to go through that process. Similarly, at the state level, we received the grant in October. We're finalizing the contract now with them for a project that's going to go over the next 4 years following that as well. So it's going to take some time for these activities, but we think over the next 4 years, you'll see most of those benefits.
Are you able to tell us what type of activities are going to be coming out of this grant opportunities?
Sure. So for the State Innovation Hub, for which we're talking about the match today, there are several components to that project. One is around infrastructure. So the biggest thing coming out of that is creating a pilot scale-up plant. What that plant will do, if you think about an analogy to cooking, in your kitchen you can make a dozen brownies, but if you have to make brownies for 2,000, you've got to figure out how to reconstitute everything to make that work. And so this pilot scale-up facility will be a shared asset that will be able to be used by small companies with ideas. They'll work in conjunction with larger companies in our region to share and test those ideas and create product that at enough of a level they start with a test tube, but they make enough of it so they can run it through production processes and test it. So that will be the biggest investment from that grant. In addition, there's $2 million for workforce activity. The goal there is to create 500, provide credentials for 500 adults for in-demand jobs in the polymer industry. And so there are new level production capabilities required for some of these jobs. And so these are for, high school graduates, for adults. Maybe they don't have to have a degree, but we're trying to focus most specifically in underrepresented populations in the community to try to give them the credentials and get them to these good jobs is the way we're sort of phrasing it. There'll be dollars provided for entrepreneurship support, so to help 200 entrepreneurs in the polymer sector move through what's called technology, manufacturing, and investment readiness levels, so they're more ready to take themselves to market. And there will also be work done on basic research. So there are ideas that are sort of getting to a certain level of development. There's a stage of technology readiness. So we're looking at products that are in the 3 and the 4 range. They have to get up to like 9 to be viable. So we want to take that, provide more investment for those technologies so that they will be able to create the product, services, and ultimately jobs and investment of companies in the region here. So those are the kinds of things happening with the Innovation Hub. On the Tech Hub, there's also a workforce component, but most of the money in the Tech Hub is going to 5 specific technologies that are looking to be commercialized, really all focused on sustainability. So less I always want to use the word toxic, which the industry doesn't like, but less toxic sort of chemicals and additives, things that are more renewable, recyclable, and ways in which we start in the beginning of the process. So, for example, organic ways of creating rubber from plants instead of creating or other materials that are used in tires. To make them from organic materials versus other kinds of chemicals that are less friendly and less sustainable. So a lot of the dollars are going towards those kinds of projects.
One follow-up. What kind of time frame will we be able to see the results of? Like how many more people are trained? How many more businesses are started? How many more opportunities to scale up a technology or
So I think, so on the workforce side, for example, we'll use this first year or so to establish the programs and the curriculum and the outreach. A big part for the workforce piece is getting people interested in this. So there's communications and outreach, but we are looking to drive those 500 credentials over the next 3 to 4 years. So about 100 in the first 12 months of the program, and then adding 100 each year after that. On the entrepreneurship side, we hope to get to about 25 entrepreneurs or companies in this first year, and then again, 15 to 25 a year thereafter for the next 4 or 5 years. On the pilot facility, there's a lot that goes into putting that together. We don't think that facility will open for probably a couple of years because siting a facility like this is a pretty significant undertaking. But then we'll begin to sort of inventory the assets that exist in the region, even outside that facility, and start to make those capabilities available to entrepreneurs in the short term. When the facility opens, then we'd have a place to do that work. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Wilhite on 2025-006. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Our next piece is 2025-007, a resolution authorizing the executive, subject to the approval of the Board of Control, to execute a professional services agreement with the Greater Akron Chamber to provide economic development services, including but not limited to business attraction and retention, workforce growth, economic inclusion, and facilitation of economic development ecosystem initiatives from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, in a total amount not to exceed $110,000 for the executive and declaring an emergency. Back to you.
Thank you. This request is really for ongoing annual support for the work that we're doing. I talked about some of the projects and the grants that are coming in to specifically help companies and workers and the other issues of the industry we're focusing on, I see this is sort of the fuel to help us be able to staff and support that work. So one of the things that the Greater Akron Chamber does is we provide a significant coordinating role and support role for economic retention, expansion calls, attraction calls. We do things both internationally and domestically to go out and represent this region, to try to bring companies here or to interest them in making investments here. We provide support for small businesses and for others in the community through things like our Business Resource Navigator, which is a resource where small businesses can get access to a couple hundred services and resources across our entire community to get help and support for their business. So a lot of the work that we do, our members invest in that work, but we also ask for investment from key partners like the county and the city and others for that. So that's the nature of the request that we have in front of you today.
Any questions? Christine? Madam Chair, I'll move. Great. Just one quick question for you from me, which is, I know part of this was also, we've done a lot of work, and you guys have been working specifically on increasing your outreach to African-American or minority-owned businesses. I'm just curious how that's going and what your outcomes have been over the last year.
It's going well. So I think we did about 90 visits last year with either minority-owned or women-owned companies. And those calls range from very basic discussions about the resources available to them in the community to helping them think about how they build something or grow something. We have a lot of those calls. We've sort of transitioned, in addition to doing individual calls, we've now started a roundtable series where we're bringing resources from the community. And so we're bringing together 20 or 30 companies at one time to sort of hear about what's available to them from the Development Fund of the Western Reserve, or what can Bounce bring to them, or what can other organizations bring to them. So I think that outreach is going well. Those companies are sometimes hard to get attention with because they're focused on running their business every single day, but we really try to make sure they know about the resources available to them and, jump in and make the connections we need when they need them.
Thank you. I have a motion from Ms. Hyam on 2025-007. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you for your support. We appreciate it.
Our last piece tonight is 2025-008, a resolution authorizing an executive to execute a lease agreement with Torchbearers, an Ohio nonprofit corporation, for educational and/or charitable use for the executive and declaring an emergency. Mr. Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Phil Montgomery from the Executive's Department of Finance and Budget. This is just a routine renewal of the lease for the Torchbearer space, but I did want to take just a minute to update council as to what's going on in that space. So right now, Torchbearers leases the space on the south side of the building, which is where the Civic Ticket House used to be. They moved in there, and Arts Now is across the way in that open atrium kind of space. And essentially, several months ago, I brought the two organizations together to better utilize that space, because Torchbearers really only uses the space at night, and Arts Now is a nonprofit that's there that works during the day. And with that fishbowl of sorts being so open, people from the street come in and knock on the door and ask Arts Now for directions and for change for the parking meters and all this other stuff. And the Torchbearer space has 5 offices, a restroom. It's just better utilized to activate it all day. So they're going to work together. Arts Now is going to take 2 of the offices in the space, use it during the day. Craig Stanley and his team removed a wall to make more of a boardroom of sorts, to be more accessible for the groups to use. And then Torchbearers will keep 3 of the offices. Arts Now will work there during the day. Torchbearers will use it at night. We added a badge reader to the door so the Torchbearer board could have better access to the space. So it's just going to really help activate the first floor. So we are going to renew this lease with Torchbearers, but just know that at the same time, we're shifting some space. And then the old Arts Now space will kind of become like a conference room of sorts. We'll put a table and some chairs in there that it can be used for meetings for them and for the county if we needed overflow space. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Montgomery? Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Ms. McKinney on 2025-008. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And Planning and Economic Development will close at 5:29.
I'll call public safety to order at 5:29. We have one item tonight, 2025-005, a resolution authorizing the executive to execute an extension to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Akron for the boarding at the Summit County Jail of misdemeanor offenders charged under a City of Akron ordinance or charged with contempt of an Akron municipal court judge for a January 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2025, in an amount not to exceed $2,464,348.50 for the executive declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We are asking council to authorize a 6-month extension of the current contract we have with the City of Akron. The terms would remain the same as they were this past year. We would just be asking for half of that amount. Akron pays us quarterly. We've been continuing to work with Akron on various contracts we have with them. We've also been working with our providers at the Summit County Jail for mental health treatment, medical treatment, and as this council knows, you approved funding for the Thrive program and the Thrive House. And so we are also working with the Sheriff's Office and applying for state grants to retrofit part of the booking area to better serve and better assess inmates as they're coming into the jail. So with mental health being the priority, both assessing that and getting folks the help that they need as soon as they're booked in. We're just asking for a little more time so that we can continue to work with the City of Akron with our providers.
Any questions? Okay, do I have a motion? Thank you. Motion by Councilman Schmidt. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And I
We'll call public safety to a close at 5:31.
I'll open Health and Human Service Committee at 5:31. First up, we have 4 items. First up, we have 2025-009, a resolution declaring the month of February 2025 as Black History Month in Summit County, recognizing the incredible accomplishments made by Black Americans in the face of diversity, as well as acknowledging the challenges of the present for the executive and declaring an emergency. LaToya.
Good evening, Council. My name is LaToya Harris. I am the Cultural Engagement Officer for Summit County out of Executive Shapiro's office. I am here to present a resolution sponsored by Executive Shapiro and Councilman Ford. The resolution states and gives a good account of the origin of Black history. It also mentions the civil rights movement, but most importantly, it mentions the history or Black history contributions that we've made here in Summit County, which is very important. It speaks to our recently elected clerk of courts, Tavia, being the first African American in that position. I can also attest, because I am the first African American in my position also, and it is a result of what we've done as a collective here in Summit County through initiatives like racism as a public health crisis. It's a testament to what the council has done, what Summit County has committed to and keeps committing to. And we look through this resolution to come back to you year after year and express other things that have happened in African American community, that support us being the first time or presenting an opportunity to actually create history. And we thank you for allowing us to bring this to you this evening.
Thank you, LaToya. Any questions?
I'd like to go on as a co-sponsor.
Council as a whole? Okay, and Ms. Walters moves on 2025-009. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Next up is 2025-010, a resolution authorizing the executive to execute amendments to grant agreements with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and the Summa Hospital Foundation to provide additional funding for the implementation of the countywide Unitas data sharing platform in an amount not to exceed $100,000 per foundation, for a total amount not to exceed $200,000 of opioid settlement dollars for the executive, the Opioid Abatement Advisory Council, and the key stakeholders group, and declaring an emergency.
Hi, thank you. I'm Alex Burt, Department of Public Safety. So these are amendments to grant agreements with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and Summa for the implementation of Unitas. They work with CliniSync, which works with every hospital across the state, to implement Unitas and have it working with all of their systems and their new technologies. It's $100,000 per hospital over 3 years. Not each hospital will necessarily use the 100,000, depends on their current integration that they already have. For example, Cleveland Clinic already uses Unitas in Cuyahoga County, so that won't be as extensive as it would be for SUMA. These will also be paid for using opiate abatement funds. And any program the hospitals have that are funded by the Opiate Abatement Council, they're also required to use Unitas within those programs as well. So it's another reason we're trying to support it.
Okay.
Councilman,
Any
just
questions?
a couple of quick things on that. So when this council authorized the funds to go to SUMA and to Cleveland Clinic Akron General for their ED programs, so the First Step and Recoveries and Reach, those are the two programs that are at the two hospitals that we're talking about here. Part of what we were trying to establish is that both hospitals would also start using Unitas for these specific patients. There is a significant cost to integrate Unitas with Clinisync and Epic. So that's why you're being asked to authorize these additional funds. Corey Kendrick and Megan Scott are here from Public Health. They have been helping to administer the grants through the hospitals. So they've got some statistics if the council has questions about who, how many folks have come through the ED doors and those sorts of things. Alex came on behalf of Public Safety because Lori has been the Unitas whisperer here for the executive's office. So there's multifaceted presentation for this. So we've got Public Health, the Law Department, Public Safety. So any questions that you may have about that?
Any questions from, Liz?
I would just ask, and I know this is a big, complicated process because we're not sure where the sale of SUMA is headed, that this gets written into any sale agreement, because it'd be a shame for us to continue to funnel money into an entity that then 6 months from now is going to turn around and go private and not be accountable to any of the dollars we've invested over the last few years. So that would be my one request there on this decision.
Great.
Understood.
Any other questions? Alex, or Greta, it was my understanding too that that each hospital may not use that full amount. It's dependent upon, I think Alex, you just alluded to too, is as they integrate in, once they're in, then they're in and they're good to go.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great.
And so that council is aware, we've had conversations with the other hospitals in Summit County, so Akron Children's Hospital and Western Reserve. We continue to work with them as far as integrating Unitas with their systems as well. It's because of the sort of expediency that we want to get these patients who are going through the, I keep saying ED, the emergency department programs. These are folks who would greatly benefit from the services that can be provided through Unitas. We want to make sure that we've got them integrated. Because of the way Unitas is set up, all of our nonprofits have access to Unitas without cost, but there is a cost for the hospitals because of the integration that has to happen with their existing software.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank and commend whoever is responsible for us getting those periodic reports on Unitas.
I believe it's Matt Devers gets them to Mark, and maybe Mark shares them.
Yeah.
And there may be an annual report either coming or you should have received it recently.
Well, we get them about monthly, I think, and that shows us what's going on, and because we want to stay on top of that and make sure that our money was invested wisely.
Yeah.
So-
It's nice to see it grow every month. looking at
Absolutely.
Those reports. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Questions?
I would like to hear a summary on the numbers, just over the last
Of
couple
the
years
Unitas
or year.
numbers
I guess.
or opiate spending?
On the Unitas, please.
Oh, Unite.
Yeah, I don't have
and-
them with me, but we can get them tomorrow.
That's okay.
We'll have them
Let's
sent
do
out.
the opiate
Okay.
spending then.
The Unitas numbers are also live on Unite Summit County, so I can send that website around so you can check them anytime.
Hi, Corey Kendrick, Summit County Public Health. Megan Scott, also Summit County Public Health. We serve as the project management team for the Opioid Abatement Advisory Council. We meet with both SUMA and Cleveland Clinic Akron General monthly to review the numbers and kind of what's going on in the emergency departments. So just to give you some totals on sort of average monthly volume for the last several months, some kind of good news, really. I mean, if you look at overdoses, if you're on our overdose report, you get that every day. We've been, slowly trending down from when 2016 hit and we had the epidemic of fentanyl and carfentanil hit our area. And during that time, our monthly average was about 213 overdoses hitting the emergency department a month. Right now, we're about 52, so 4 times less than what we were. But what we're seeing with the emergency department program is that patients are actually going to the emergency department to seek substance use disorder treatment. So they have 177 on average a month coming to the EDs to seek treatment and medicated assisted treatment. So it's almost flipped from where we had our prevention and education hopefully is really taking root in the community through naloxone education and all of our great providers and nonprofit networks out there doing the work. Less people are overdosing and going to the ED, and more people are going to the ED for treatment. So about 177 per month. And then another great thing that's been happening through the program is they're screening everyone that comes in the emergency department for substance use disorder issues. And so people presenting to the ED that may necessarily not be going there for that particular issue, it might be cold, flu, it could be a wound, it could be just a variety of different things. They're screening those individuals, and 238 of those individuals a month are assessed for substance use disorder treatment and offered services. Of those, 116 or so are receiving medicated assisted treatment through the emergency departments per month. And then from there, they're referring out to agency communities to continue that treatment. And that may involve, counseling, connecting with a peer support organization, just a wide variety of different things. Which leads us to Unitas, where we have a lot of great information from the EDs, but where our gap really is right now is in those referrals. Right now they have about 40 plus referral partners. That's just substance use disorder alone, not including social services agencies they refer to. And it's really hard to get that information back from those agencies. So once they're referred, their care coordinators in the hospital try to do their best to call those agencies from the faxes or phone calls and say, did this person show up? Are they getting treatment? But those agencies are very, busy with other things. It's hard for them to, turn around and report that information back. And a lot of the, line level staff may be worried about privacy rights and that sort of thing. So the brilliance of the Unitas platform is that having this bidirectional electronic system is that, participants are protected by HIPAA secure platform. They all agree to the terms and conditions to the parties that have consented to, and so that we can use that as a loop, referral loop to kind of go back and be able to see better where those referrals made, and some notes and different things within that. So with that, is there any other questions?
Anybody, any other questions?
I don't know if I heard in the beginning when she was speaking, did she say something about the 100-something thousand, that it's not always used up? Did she say that?
The $100,000?
Did she say that? Yeah.
Yes.
So what happens to that? I don't.
So it's reimbursement. So when they've got their bills for the integration, we will pay those down. So if they do not, come up to the full $100,000, those funds will remain with the county.
All right, thank you.
Great. Can I have a motion? Ms. McKinney moved on 2025-010. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you guys very much. Next up, we have 2025-011, a resolution authorizing the executive to execute a sub-award agreement with Direction Home Akron-Canton Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities to continue the provision of additional services to Summit County residents and continue one pilot program to assist older adults with aging in place from 10/1/24 through 12/31/25 in an amount not to exceed $3,200,000 for the executive and declaring an emergency. Holly Miller.
Holly Miller, Department of Community and Economic Development. This is to continue the services that we had funded in 2024 with ARPA funds with a contract with Direction Home. And Abby Morgan is here from Direction Home to give you the accomplishments for 2024 and talk about 2025. You'll see that it's only one pilot program instead of the two that was part of 2024. The pilot programs in '24 was digital equity and minor home modification. We are keeping minor home modification in-house. The Department of Development will be administering it. That will allow us to easily collaborate and leverage funds with other programs we already have in-house. With that, I will invite Abby Morgan up to give you the accomplishments.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Abby Morgan, President and CEO of Direction Home, Akron Canton Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities. If you were not here when we came to council right before 2024, Direction Home is a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving older adults, people with disabilities, and their caregivers in Summit, Stark, Portage, and Wayne counties. We are part of a federally designated statewide and national network. We have over 50 years of experience assessing community needs, planning, and delivering services to older adults and their caregivers. We do that in partnership with community leaders and stakeholders and service providers. And really our whole goal is ensuring that needed services are accessible for older adults and their families and can thrive in the place that they call home. I have been accused of talking very fast, and so I will try not to do that, but I do want to pause and recognize we do have a community member here, a resident, Summit County resident, who's joined us. Mrs. Kodish is here, and she is available to answer questions about the program, but also provide information about her experience and the impact that the program has had for her and her husband on the program. Procedurally, I don't know if we're able to call her up, but can share about the impact, but also want to make sure that you have the opportunity to hear and ask questions of Mrs. Kodish.
Mrs. Kodish, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Jonah Lynn Kodish. For 48 years, I have been married to Stephen Beers. Stephen Beers has dementia, chronic depression, and anxiety disorder. I am his caregiver. I came to you because there's no other way that I can thank Direction Home for what they've done in terms of, forget saving my husband's life and making his life better, for keeping me going from day to day to day. Because at the time I first contacted Direction, which was shortly after the grant we're talking about was initially obtained, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I was becoming depressed for the first time in my life. I had called on all my friends and other people who might be helpful, and they did what they could, but it wasn't enough. By the grace of God, I was connected to a marvelous, I repeat, marvelous, knowledgeable, kind case manager at Direction who came to my home, sat down and talked to me at great length, talked to my husband as much as he was willing to talk, and this was the first glimmer of any light whatsoever in the tunnel. Now, I recognize a condition like my husband's and like others helped by Directions there's no happy ending. I understand that, but frankly, council people, I take every single day that my husband is at home in our house with our dogs and knows where the bedroom is and so on. I take those as victories. And fortunately, there are times where I see glimpses of the Stephen that I met in law school, and it wouldn't have happened if he were not at home. My goal personally is to keep my husband at home till such time as his condition is so bad that he doesn't know the difference between home and not home. If you will indulge me for a minute, I'd like to tell you the sort of things that Directions has done for me. In addition to giving me a feeling that I'm not a total failure at this, it's sort of like having a baby. You know, I didn't get any direction manual when I had my son. Well, I didn't get any direction manual when my husband's condition presented itself either. But I've been assured that I'm moving in the right direction. But Directions not only gives me moral support, but gives me really important assistance. For instance, my husband has been awarded 7 delivered to the house meals a week, which means, frankly, that I can be here right now and he can push the microwave for 1.5 minutes and have something to eat. That's the least of it. They also provided a medical alert. Yes, thank you. A medical alerted insignia, and they provide 4 days a week the services of a young gentleman who comes in for an hour or an hour and a half to help my husband bathe and change his clothes because he is incontinent of both 1 and 2 and doesn't always recognize that he should change. As a matter of fact, mostly doesn't recognize that he should change. But let me just say that what Directions has provided for me is nothing short of miraculous. Early on, they provided a couple of one-off services, like someone to do my front yard when the township in which I live was ready to cite me and fine me and so on. I physically can't do it. My husband can't be trusted to do something like that. So they were a godsend. And even to this day, I feel comfortable that I could call the social worker almost any day. She has called me on the weekend, so, I could call almost any time for questions. I just urge you, with everything I have in me, to renew this grant because it is helping real people every single day. It is helping what I call the great forgotten middle. I am not poverty-stricken, never have been, never had to worry about such things, but I am also not a mega gazillionaire. And believe it or not, I have no money trees growing in my backyard. So to pay, personally for some of these services is totally prohibitive. And, well, we hope to get onto Medicaid. Medicaid takes the position, generally speaking, that we're going to find a reason not to help you rather than a reason to help you, which of course is the diametrically opposed to what the wonderful people at Direction are doing. So as one of many, many caregivers in the county and in the adjoining counties, I beg you to please vote in favor of this continuance and would answer any other questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mrs. Godish.
Thank you.
Does any member of the dais have a question for Mrs. Godish? Let me just say, it was very kind of you to come and share your story with this body. We appreciate that. We certainly will be thinking of you and wish you the absolute best with your husband and the situation at home. And as one who is devoutly devoted to the importance of a home, it is my hope you can stay there as long as you can. That's without question, the most important thing we as a community can do is to do everything and anything we can to make sure that people can stay in their homes, because it goes to your mental health and it goes to your physical health. And I'll argue anybody all day long, every day on that situation because I know it's true. So to you, our best wishes, and I want to thank the folks at Direction Home that are giving you that service. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Kodish.
you so much for your kind words. And again, this is the only way I can thank Direction, so that's why I'm here.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Rita.
How many members have enrolled? Do you have a number of that? How many enrollments?
Sure, I can run through some of the numbers from 2024. So we opened the program in January of last year, started receiving phone calls very early on, swamped with calls. We received over 8,000 calls requesting assistance in Summit County, and we're able to provide over 2,700 in-home assessments with a licensed RN or a social worker to assess for need, eligibility, and appropriateness for the program. By February, we began enrolling people in the program and providing the services like what you heard from Ms. Kodish. We enroll people based on the greatest need, and some people need help with house cleaning or the yard service that you heard about. Some need basic home maintenance, but some need more accessibility in their homes and ongoing services like the meals, the life alert, the personal care, and adult day services. So for individuals that are receiving that ongoing care coordination, like what Mrs. Kodish is receiving, we have roughly 640 individuals who are receiving those types of ongoing services, and we've been able to provide over 4,400 months of those services ongoing to those individuals. That includes over 87,000 meals, 10,000 hours of personal care service, and over 1,000 days at a local adult day center, and providing those hours of respite to those caregivers.
So out of 8,000 that applied, and so you're saying 640 are only receiving the service?
So what we do is we try and make sure that we're pointing people to the service and the program that's most appropriate for them. So we are assessing their need across a whole level of services, including those Medicaid programs that Mrs. Kodish referenced. So we're able to look at and say, how do we appropriately provide the right level of service for an individual for what they are eligible for? This program is specifically geared towards those people, like what Mrs. Kodish alluded to, that fall through the cracks, that are not eligible for the Medicaid program, but are unable to financially afford that type of assistance. In addition to all of those ongoing services, we did provide 45 home repairs, 306 one-time chore services, and there was also the digital navigation service where we provided devices, training, months of internet to over 700 individuals, all through funds on the grant.
Anybody else?
For the executive's office, so all those services are considered one pilot program in the description of the legislation?
No, the only pilot program was the minor home mod and digital equity or digital inclusion. All the other programs were to move people off of the wait list and expand their current offerings.
Holly, I have a question for you, because I can't remember this. Last year, it was brought to our attention, this was just brought to my attention again, and I could not remember the age, but it's for use, I think all seniors qualify for food stamps in Summit County. Did I hear that last year?
I don't think that that's a correct statement.
No.
It's not, is it? Okay. For this one, okay. I meant to ask that question, but, one of the other things, so I know, like as a caregiver, when you are taking care of somebody in distress, one of the biggest things is making those appointments for doctors, because, I mean, it's very complicated. You have to do everything online, and you're already stressed, and you can't you're just stressed out. You can't, it's not that you're a failure, by no means, you're not a failure. You're just stressed, and that's a big burden on anyone. But Do you guys provide that?
So for those individuals that have a care manager that's able to kind of go along with them in their journey, that care manager can assist with the scheduling of appointments. We also have some really fantastic examples where we've been able to give individuals and the caregivers the online tools to help ease that scheduling and access online medical portals, and how quickly we can assist people in getting through that process and using online devices and internet services even from day one to be able to have those tools and have those things accessible online. So we try and meet people where they're at and assess what's the best way that we can make sure that you're managing to those ongoing needs.
So in today's world, a lot of doctors, geriatric doctors, will help keeping where you don't have to get the patient out. You can actually do it at home and do a visual
Telehealth.
phone and go over all your conditions and stuff like that, so that they can help you where you don't even have to get in the car, because that's very hard, taking them out of their element.
Yeah, the telehealth visits, the digital navigators who go into the home, I was able to shadow some of those visits. It's amazing once people realize what they can do, because a lot of the people that we're able to provide internet for have never had internet in their home, or have had access to anything other than maybe a smartphone. So going through and saying what you can access for free, giving them some basic skills and also some things to watch out for, we're seeing tremendous gains in what people are able to access online.
One last quick, so with the ARPA funds, Bill, are we getting to the end of these dollars that will be available for services like these?
Our ARPA funds are all expended.
Are all expended? And so, understanding these programs are necessary, how does Direction Home plan to continue to provide these types of services after these one-time fundings are no longer?
It's a no stone unturned mentality. We are having conversations now with everybody that we can, community leaders, local funders, stakeholders, frankly, having conversations with all of you to say, how can we continue to fund and expand access to these services? Because not only do we want to keep them going, we also currently have a wait list of over 1,000 people that would be eligible for these services. So we have had conversations with local foundations, the health systems, SUMA, thinking about how can we continue to expand access, because we want to serve more people and keep these services going.
Are you able to provide, you gave all the numbers with
Yes.
regard to how this happens. Are you able to put numbers with that, like how much do the meals cost? Because $3.2 million is an awful lot of money to serve 640, so helping me wrap my head around what that money.
Sure, and it is more than 640 individuals. Those are the people who have ongoing care plans that add up to those 87,000 meals that they're getting ongoing, and those 1,000 days in adult day centers. We do have a report that we can push send on to Mark to make sure that it gets to all of you, that kind of goes through the progression of services that we've been able to provide.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee?
I just want to thank you for the important work that you do.
Thank you.
It's such a valuable and vulnerable population. I would like to see those reports and would like to ask for more time on this, so we'll make sure we're handling this in the very best ways we can.
We have a motion for time. Before we address the motion, Holly, so that everybody understands, of this 3.2 million, the other dollars, the home modification, that is going in and doing significant work to modify the home to keep a family in, correct? It's not just a small thing here.
I don't know if I like the word significant. We're not doing, if the home is structurally unsound or falling apart and no roof and condemned, we can't do that. But what we're able to do, and what I've explained to council in the past, is we can leverage this. So we're able to go in, our entryway into the house is the referral from Direction Home, because the client needs a wheelchair ramp or grab bars or whatever. And then from there, My team then uses the Healthy Homes rating system to determine what else needs to be done in their home, providing them what they need to stay there, the wheelchair ramp, the grab bars, the walk-in shower, but then also replacing their furnace, hot water tank, insulation in the home. If the home was built before 1978, I have a lead safe program. Within the next probably month and a half, we'll be bringing to council that we were just awarded the HUD older home or older senior citizen home modification program from HUD. It's a $1.9 million grant that we were awarded that we'll leverage with this. So we've added some more programs that will really be able to collaborate and provide more services. That also includes an occupational therapist pre and post any work that we do. So it just made sense bringing this in and letting us have control of that $800,000. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Again, before we move on the motion, I'm compelled to make a statement as it relates to the senior population. I have a 90-year-old mother. Thank God she's in great health. She lives at home. She drives to Acme when she needs stuff. But that's not the norm. And there are issues across this community, across this country, where our seniors are faced with that question. Do they stay at home, or do they have to go into, and I'm going to say it, and anybody can knock me down for it, they go into a warehouse. And I don't like that personally. I don't think that's a way to say thank you to the people that came before us. Yes, I'm on a soapbox right now because I'm going to finish by saying this. If we as a community don't start looking at how we're going to care for that population going forward, we're all in trouble. Because guess what? We're all going to be that population. Some of us sooner than others. But we're all going to be a part of that population. And to our discredit and to our demise, if we don't pay attention to that, figure out how we're going to pay for these things like Mrs. Kodish and her family needs and other people need, we are in big trouble. So my hope is that we can get the information that we need to go ahead and move forward on this pilot. But I'm going beyond this, this legislation. I'm going to the point where we have got to figure out how we're going to make this work for the people that live in this community. And to say that we're going to try and look at grants and foundations and things like that, we all know those are passing dollars. Those aren't permanent. What message does that send to our older folks in this community that, hey, we'll do what we can for you while we got a grant. But once that grant dries up, guess what? You're on your own. That's not the community I want to see. That's not the community that is supportive and means everything to every one of us going forward. So, end of soapbox. The issue is we have a motion of time on this piece of legislation. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Abby, for being here. Okay, last resolution is 2025-012, a resolution authorizing the executive to advertise for bids for non-emergency medical transportation providers for a one-year term for an estimated total cost not to exceed $6,350,000 for the Executive's Department of Job and Family Services and declaring an emergency. Heather.
Good evening, everyone. Heather Yannion, Deputy Director with Job and Family Services. We are seeking permission to advertise for our NET provider services. NET is a acronym for Non-Emergency Transportation. This is a pass-through fund, so all of these dollars actually come from the state and are fully reimbursed. This is a service that allows us to provide transportation for non-emergency medical, so to go to the pharmacy, to go to the doctors, to any Medicaid recipient. So currently, we have to go out to bid for this. We are under the last year of our contract. Currently, we have one broker and 5 transportation providers, plus another provider that offers bus passes. We anticipate with this next bidding that we will have as many, if not more, providers bid as an opportunity. And just so you guys know, we project about 1,400 customers a year and about 120,000 one-way trips annually. So that's what this program does. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mrs. Walters moves on this. Do we have any other questions on this piece of legislation? Hearing none, We have a motion on 2025-012. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
And we'll close Health and Human Services at 6:10.
And we'll open up finance. We have one item at 5:10. It's an amendment on 2025-013, an amended resolution authorizing the executive to execute a grant agreement with the Akron Marathon Charitable Corporation in an amount of $35,000 per year for a 2-year period for a total amount of $70,000 for the executive and declaring an emergency. Can I have a motion on the amendment?
I'll move the amendment, since I asked for it.
All right, Ms. Hyam, what did you say? Ms. Hyam moves on the amended on 2025-013. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And to move it forward, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, we have with us today Ann Batong is the president and CEO of the Akron Marathon Charitable Corporation.
That's okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me on your agenda today. The County of Summit has been an invaluable partner of our Corporate Challenge program, as well as an underwriter of our Blue Line Runnership program. Our Blue Line Runnership program provides race entry scholarships to underpopulated communities, as well as folks focusing on their mental health. The full packet deck is provided in your packet. However, I wanted to share some facts and a few key, success metrics from the grant that we received in 23 and 24. So in 23 and 24, we had our Corporate Challenge program. In 23, we had 34 companies represented, 1,252 participants. In 24, we saw growth through participation, 33 companies and 1,325 participants. As part of our partnership as well, we work with the County of Summit to provide race entries as part of their health and wellness program. So in 23, we saw 166 participants in terms of the County of Summit employees and 204 participants in 2024. The direct cost to the county is the $35,000 annual grant, as well as the additional cost of the race entries covered by the County of Summit. That equals $90,330. The Blue Line Runnership Program, again, this is the race entry scholarship. In 23, we had 122 race entry scholarships. In 24, we grew that program to offer 325 race entry scholarships. The average household income is a little over $32,000 of those participants, and you can see some additional detail in terms of employed, unemployed, retired, or unable to work. The goal there, again, is to try to reach that underprivileged population. In terms of participation, you can see this slide here shows representation across all 3 of our events. We have 3 races across our series, an 8K and 1 mile in June, a 10K and a half marathon in August, and then the marathon, half marathon, and relay in September. So you can see that we do have participation across all 3 of our events, really focusing and promoting health and wellness across 18 weeks of training. In terms of demographics, we had a key focus on diversity, and so we had participants represented from various genders, races, ethnicities, and age groups. You can see the slides here. And then also in terms of participation, we had folks run, walk, push teams, wheelchair participants, as well as, of course, runners. The next couple of proof of performance slides, I'm not going to go into detail there, but it basically shows how we partnered with the County of Summit in terms of promoting health and fitness in the greater Akron area and Summit County. We also had our corporate challenge. We had an award ceremony held here right in council chambers. So we are proposing a 2-year renewal from 25 to 26 to build on our momentum and expand our participation.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Council as a whole is fine. Go ahead.
I confess I've never run in a marathon or a half marathoner. But how much does it cost to enter into the Akron Marathon for an individual?
It varies depending on the event that they register for, and across all three of our events. The underwriting of the Blue Line race entry scholarships, the average registration fee is $75. So with the county support, that would allow us to provide race entry scholarships for 200 individuals. But it can vary anywhere from $55 for an 8K up to about $125 for the full marathon distance, which is the 26.2 miles.
Any other questions?
What if a company wants to, do you have like a group rate for a company that would like to?
We don't necessarily have a group rate. However, our corporate challenge program, companies can decide if they want to cover the cost of their race entries as part of their health and wellness initiatives. And then in that case, a company would contact us and we would coordinate setting up group registration. We would assign a code, and those individual employees could register, and then we would invoice the company after the fact. Some companies decide to subsidize the race entry, and some companies decide to cover the entire cost.
And I will just take this minute to plug our Let's Move Summit County event that's hosted by council every year. So if you haven't marked your calendars yet, May 17th is your opportunity to participate in our Let's Move Summit County.
I'll be out of town again, darn.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion? Ms. Hyam moves on 2025-013. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll close finance out at 6:15.
Thank you.
I'm going to open up committee of the whole.
Yes.
We have one piece before us, 2025-014, a resolution determining to proceed with submitting the question of assurance of library improvement bonds in the aggregate principal amount of $160 million to the electors residing within the boundaries of Akron Summit County Public Library pursuant to sections 133.18 and 3375.43 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency. And welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Pam Hickson Stevenson, Executive Director of the Akron Summit County Public Library. It's a pleasure to be here. I am very well aware that it's 6:16, and I will try to move through this very quickly. Some of you know this already, and I apologize that it's being repeated for you, but for several years now, library administrators and the Board of Trustees have been studying and assessing the conditions of the various locations of our 19 points of service around the county. Some people still think of our branches as new, and they are not. The average age is 24 years now in our system. Main Library opened 20 years ago, this past year. Our Norton and Portage Lakes branches are each more than 30 years old. Only 2 branches are less than 20 years old. That's Kenmore and Highland Square. So we knew that this was going to be a tsunami coming on the horizon in terms of capital needs. One point of information that's very important to understand is that over the span of about six or 7 years, we opened 14 new locations, which of course means that particularly that class of buildings, that group, is aging at roughly the same rate. So earlier in 24, the library engaged Bostwick Design Partnership, which is an architectural and design and master planning firm out of Cleveland that has done a lot of public library studies and projects in order for them to provide a space usage feasibility study for us. And they confirmed what we knew, that we are facing significant capital improvement needs in all of our locations over the next few years. Needs include things like replacements of roofs, parking lots, flooring, and furnishings, but it actually will be a mix of projects, including envelope issues such as windows and doors, but also interior work related to how the libraries will continue to function into the 21st century. No location will be untouched. And of course, probably goes without saying, but I will say that if the voters approve this issue, there will be none of this will be spent on operating. No salaries, no materials. This is all for capital needs. The architectural firm held public engagement sessions, meetings face-to-face, and also conducted a public survey. And members of the public spoke up. We had more than 1,700 responses over the 2-week span of the survey, and they were overwhelmingly pleased with the services and with the staff at the library system. But they did express a desire for more quiet study spaces, more collaborative spaces, creative areas, more technology, comfortable seating, and improved spaces for remote work. We all know we have a large percentage of the population who works remotely, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want to work from home. And so they'd like the library to be better outfitted to support remote work. If approved by the voters, the proceeds, of course, would go towards selling the bonds, and that would be returned over 20 years. So the proposal is to go on the ballot for $160 million for a span of 20 years with an average interest rate of 5%. Our overall goal is to protect the substantial investment the community has made over the years, particularly with the $80 million bond issue that was approved in 1987. That was 0.98 mils, so almost 1 mil. But another goal, as I said earlier, is to ensure that our spaces are going to continue to move ahead through well into the 21st century. I did want to make certain that there's an understanding that only the residents of the communities in the library's official district will vote and then would, if successful, will pay the property tax. Examples of communities that will not be included in that include Barberton, Cuyahoga Falls, Hudson, Stowe, and Twinsburg. And just to toss out a few numbers, I will not do all of them, but I thought you might be interested in some of our usage statistics. Last year, in 2024, our users borrowed more than 4.6 million items. That is up from 23. So we're very happy to see that trend is coming up after the pandemic. You can imagine that was sort of a disaster for libraries, just like virtually everybody else. We also enjoyed visits 1.3 million times in 2024. More than 280 people registered to borrow 280,000 people registered to borrow materials. We conducted more than 2,000 story times in 2024, helping those vulnerable early years where early literacy skills are critically important for the future students. As I said, the last bond issue was approved in 1987, and what I did not say is that it came off the tax duplicate in 2020. So that was I didn't even share everything on that piece of paper, so that was a very quick run through, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilor Cahoven, I was going to ask you, what libraries did you say were excluded?
Oh.
I apologize.
No worries. This is an example. These are examples, primary examples. Barberton, Cuyahoga Falls, Hudson, Stowe, and Twinsburg. They have their own library, their own district, their own board of trustees, and they're not included in voting on any ASCPL issues.
I just wanted to make sure I had that written down.
Yeah. Right.
There's no further questions. I have a motion from Councilwoman Liz Walters. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we will close.
Thank you.